Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The planning board continues to allow virtual attendance. If we have people. Okay, is that better? All right. The planning board continues to allow virtual attendance. In order to attend the meeting, you're going to go to www.zoom.us with a browser on your computer or other smart device. The meeting ID is 754-663-912, or you can dial in by phone. One of the numbers available is 646-558-8656, and again, it's the same meeting ID, 754-663-912. If you are on the phone, you need to do a *6 to unmute yourself when you've been recognized, and a *9 to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair. We have two exits for the room, one at the back, that's the primary exit. In the event of emergency, there's also the exit up front to my right, to your left. In the event of emergency, please do not use the elevator. If you require assistance, first responders will help you. At this point, I would like to introduce the staff and board who are here tonight. Mr. Sioris, the planning director.
Good evening.
Mr. Chase, the administrator's representative.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Healy.
Good evening.
Town council liaison, Mr. Grenice.
Good evening.
To our far left, Owen Preventure, who is the guy who runs the video and will let you into the conference if you need to come in. Our town engineer, Mark LaRue.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Malaby.
Good evening.
Secretary, Mr. Myers.
Hello.
And I'm Dave Nelson. I'm the vice chair, sitting as chair pro tem this evening. First item on our agenda is escrow. Mr. Soros, would you like to review this for us?
I apologize for putting the packets together. We're still in the training phase of my career here, so that information's halfway through. So if you go to midway through your package, you'll see the escrow. So just for the record, this is addressed to the chairman of the planning board. It's escrow number 23-12. September 20th, the project name is Subdivision on Mill Road, Alyssa Drive. Nico Land LLC is the developer. It's a letter of credit. It's at 45 Mill Road. The action requested would be to approve release number 1 in the amount of $9,059.04. For the above noted project, the amount to retain is $15,422.40. This escrow is non-interest bearing. It's been signed by Public Works, Planning, and Code Enforcement. Staff would recommend approval.
I move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Grenice, seconded by Myers to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Any abstentions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you, we have confirmation Mr. O'Connor is present.
Oh, okay, so let me redo that vote then, because if we have a remote attendee, we need to do everything by roll call. So, Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice,
Yes.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. It's still approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have the approval of the minutes, and I think there were a couple of clerical errors that were noted. So. You can still move. You can
I
abstain.
move to approve the minutes from September 6th.
Second.
Moved by Grenice, seconded by Myers to approve the minutes as revised. We will call the roll. Mr. Chase,
I will abstain, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice,
Mr. Chairman, I will also abstain.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor.
Abstain.
Was that a yes?
No, abstain.
Abstain, I'm sorry. And the chair votes yes. I hope you're feeling better, John, at some point. You don't sound all that peppy, so we're wishing you health and sending you good mental vibes here. Next item on the agenda, correspondence.
Mr. Chairman, the only correspondence is a issue of the New Hampshire Municipal Association's magazine, Town and City. And there's an announcement in here of a land use law conference in October with Planning Board and Zoning Board.
Now, is that the first one that's actually going to be in person and
Yeah.
since COVID?
Yes, I'll be in person, and if you want to go, let me know. The town pays for that, so just send me an email and we'll register you for it.
Okay, great.
That's our only correspondence, that's it.
Thank you. Under other business, we have the second reading of the proposed amendments to the Planning Board policies and procedures to amend Article 2, Meeting, Section 1, Annual Meeting. So that is included in your packet somewhere.
Page 4.
Any questions or comments on the second reading? Okay, if not, I will poll the board as to their acceptance of the second reading as presented. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The next item on the agenda is a voluntary merger for Nancy Piccirilli.
Yep, okay.
Want to go ahead and
Okay,
tell us about that, George?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's, the applicant is Nancy Piccirilli. The two properties that's owned by the family is 160 Island Pond Road and 146.5 Island Pond Road. There's a map attached to the location, which is right on Ballard Pond, down that end of Island Pond near Warner Hill. Staff would recommend approval, and I think it's pretty straightforward, so staff would recommend approval to merge the lot.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no comments, this looks like it's pretty clear cut. So I'd like to make a motion pursuant to the provisions of RSA 674:39A. The Derry Planning Board approves a voluntary merger of PID 06033, 160 Island Pond Road, and PID 06026, 146.5, well, .5 Island Pond Road. Parcel 06026 shall be deleted, and parcel 06033 shall be retained.
Second.
Moved by Grenice, seconded by Myers. Any discussion? If not, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, next item on the agenda is planning director and chairman updates. Do you have any updates, Mr. Ciores?
I have none, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, let's just move into our public hearing then. Town of Derry, PID 05043, 56 Rockingham Road. Pursuant to RSA 674:54, governmental use of land, we're going to have a review of the proposed Derry Fire Department headquarters site plan. And just to set the ground rules for anyone present, this is basically a courtesy review. The public is free to make non-binding comments. The planning board is free to make non-binding comments. However, we're not going to vote to approve or disapprove any of this matter this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, you said it perfectly. I think we had one abutter come in the office today, and I know there's been some, mom said they would attend in person, but he's going to be zooming in, the engineer, and Owen, you have his stuff. David McKinley from Bader Engineering's pulled out his back, so he's going to be zooming in from home, but he's online. He will electronically put the plan up on the screen, and also Chief Jim Richardson is here to answer any questions from the fire department.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so how you want me to run the PowerPoint you have, right? So you'll basically run the PowerPoint and I just go next slide, slide next? That how you want me to do it?
Yes.
I can only
Yes.
see, okay, you see me, obviously, you wanted to see the slide, you want to see the presentation, there we go. Okay, basically, we are here, I'm Dave McKinley, I'm a registered landscape architect. I work for Beta Engineering, I represent Wendell as well as Bob Mitchell Art Associates, we're working with them for the town to construct a new fire headquarters on Rockingham Road. You want to move to the next slide? Basically, you probably all know where this site is. It's part of a 30-acre parcel. It's 4 acres that is being taken as part of this 30-acre parcel. It's going to be on the south end of the parcel. The other access is broad. You can get there from Pierce Avenue, past the Parkland Medical Center, but there's not going to be any kind of connection between Pierce Avenue and our site. Basically, it's pretty close to the center of town. You can see the center of town is off to the northwest a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of flavor for what the site looks like. Go to the next slide. Basically, each one in the left-hand corner, you're going to see a little red arrow, little triangle. The red point is where we're standing. The white is where you're looking. So that's looking back up toward the intersection where Rite Aid is. You've got houses on the left-hand side, the other side, the south side of the street on Rockingham Road. You'll notice that the power lines are on our side of the highway. We are going to leave the power lines where they are. But we've got easy clearance underneath to get the fire trucks in and out of the site. Next slide. That's looking the other direction. We have some definite grade issues on the site. There's a 28-foot change in elevation from the southeast corner of the site, which is down where that car is, up to the northwest corner of the site, which is basically, I think it's basically, let me see, 284 to 312. So you're gonna see, as you probably saw if you looked at the plans, you will see there are some major retaining walls on this site in order to make sure the site is navigable and usable for the fire department. Next slide. Just to get a feel for the site, the entire site, the 4 acres, is mostly wooded. There is a small clearing just to the right of that triangle. That's only about 1 acre now, but we are going to be clearing almost all of the site in our zone. I'll explain a little bit as to why. We try to save some of the woods in the southeast corner, but that was not going to be feasible due to some drainage issues and the fact that there is rock underneath this entire area. So go to the next slide. That's along the east property line. You'll see there's a fence. There's some remnants of the stone wall that was probably once is long gone. Just to know that we are going to be trying to keep at least a 20-foot buffer along that edge, planting it up, and basically the fact that the entire parking lot will be lower than this fence will help screen the neighbors with the vegetation as well. Next. That's looking down from the southeast corner, looking down toward Sunnyside Lane. The reason I'm showing you this slide is because we're going to be excavating along this grassy strip in order to get a drainage line to connect to a drainage manhole at Sunnyside as an overflow for our infiltration basin, which I'll show you on a drainage plan, just to give you an idea of what it looks like now. Next. That's the entrance to the cleared area. That's basically centered in the middle of the site, just to give you a feel that it's already there. Next. Okay, so basically one of the things we want to put on this site is a sign that basically tells you, obviously, the fire department's here. One of the things that we want you to know is happening is that we would like to put an LED sign, basically both directions. The sign will be perpendicular to the road, and so you will be able to read the sign both directions. this is basically to give public announcements for burning, for fire prevention, and basically other town events, and makes it simple. We're keeping this behind our property line. It'll be kind of tucked onto a hill, as it won't be, you know, glaring or glamorous or whatever, but it'll also tie into the building. As you can see that the brick matches the brick of the building. You'll see the sizes on the left. So this is the rendering of the overall site to give you a feel for what the building looks like. The only thing that's not really real here, because it's very, very difficult to do in a SketchUp model or rendering, is the fact that the grade does drop between the road and the upper platform by about 5 or 6 feet. We have a perched platform up on top where the site wall is. The site wall is surrounding the 3 flags, kind of a memorial area. And you'll see later in the drainage plan as to why we had to perch that area. So just to the right of that, with a shadowed area in front of the building, that'll be the entrance. And you'll see there are 5 apparatus bays on the site, plus the training tower on the left-hand side. Next. So these are basically the elevations. We wanted to show you this elevation because as part of the design requirements for the fire station, we do need to put an antenna for communication across the town. That's being studied right now by a company called Two Way that represents a lot of people in New Hampshire. This antenna is targeted to be about 150 feet tall. I'll show you where it is in the site plan when we get there, but it's basically in the northwest corner on the Rite Aid side. It's just going to be designed so that it has a breakaway in the middle, so that it would not fall as a 150-foot zone. It would fall to a 75-foot zone, which would keep it completely on our property if for any reason the antenna failed, which we do, of course, do not expect it to happen. So these are just elevations, basically, pretty much to show you the heights. We don't get over 32 feet in the front on any of on the overall roof. There are a few little extrusions, little roofs that go up with a training tower and in the front entrance, but I think those are excluded. So I'm only showing you the south elevation, north elevation, west elevation. The east elevation is pretty much simple, as pretty much the same thing as the west elevation here. Go to the next slide. So here's our site plan. I put this in color so you'd have a pretty good understanding of how we're going in. We do have 2 entrances. The visitor entrance is on the east side and the apparatus entrance is on the west side. There's a reason for that. It's a question of sight distance down the road, both directions. The apparatus bay coming out of that site on the west side has a much better sight distance looking toward Rockingham Road, looking east, than if it was put in the place where the visitor's entrance would be. You still have a pretty good sight distance from the visitor's entrance, but to have it as safe as possible, we thought it makes more sense to put the apparatus bay on the west side. The other reason we wanted to do that was because the apparatus bay, when the trucks are leaving and coming in, would be farthest away from the residences on Sunnyside Lane, and they would have less disturbance in terms of any kind of comings and goings from the fire station. So you'll see the staff parking and the visitor parking are on the east side of the site. There's a few spaces in front of the building for visitor parking, but most of the staff and visitors, some of the overflow parking for visitors is on the east, would be in the front, and the staff parking would be in the back. Basically, you've got a wall that wraps around from the east all the way across the entire north edge, and then almost all the way down along the west edge of the property. That wall in the back corner is about 10 feet tall, and then it tapers down as you get closer to the front. We try to make that wall as small as possible, or short as possible for obvious reasons, but we needed to put that in order to get the apparatus bay to work. There's a future outbuilding hoped for, planned right now, behind right there. We're showing it in grass because that's what it's going to be at this point in time, but we're designing the segmental retaining wall, or I should say modular building wall, behind this area so that we'll be able to accommodate a future foundation for that outbuilding, but we don't know what it is exactly. The generator is located next to that, transformers up against the back of the building. There's a small little plaza area in the back of the building for the firefighters. We do have the memorial plaza in the front of the building. That green area, the lawn area, you'll see later, the next slide, I think, is where the underground drainage will be. There we go. You'll see the big blue boxes are underground drainage. And to explain a little bit of that, the hardest part of this entire site was figuring out the drainage and not having the project go over budget. We calculated through many borings that we did with Weston and Sampson, that in order to build what you're seeing here, we're gonna have to excavate about 2,000, or I should say blast 2,000 cubic yards of rock out of the site, which was putting this cost of this project up. If we had put any of the drainage behind the building or on the east side of the building, it would have elevated the cost and would have turned the drainage areas into bathtubs. So all of the drainage you see in blue is in the front of the building, perched and above the calculate or estimated rock that we think we'll have. And then it goes and overflows all of these three basins into a infiltration area on the right-hand side, which has also got a retaining wall around it in order to maximize the space in order to meet the requirements. And then in the southeast corner of that, there's an overflow, which would go straight to the Sunnyside catch basin, as I pointed out from the photograph we saw last time. Other colors here are just gas. We're gonna bring gas in. Gas does not exist right now in this portion of Rockingham Road, so we're gonna have to bring it from the intersection over with Liberty Gas. They will bring it to the southwest corner of our building, and then we will have to be wrapping it around to bringing it to the generator, which is gonna be gas operated. Water, and most of the other utilities we're trying to get, except for the sewer, are going to be coming on up the visitor entrance, and the reason we want to do that is because that showed the lowest amount of rock, or I should say the elevation of the rock at the lowest points, so it would require, we think, less blasting, certainly to bring the water service into the site. We do have one catch basin above the retaining wall because the entire area above the site kind of drains to our area, so we're picking it all up in a swale, picking it up with that catch basin, and then bringing it around over the infiltration basin. That water, you'll see, does not have to be treated. Just to let you know, we did send this to New Hampshire DES as an AOT. The AOT was approved with this plan, so we have that approval. I think we included that in the site plan review package. So next, I think. Okay, one other thing we have done is gone through the Highway Safety Commission. We showed them, we gave them this plan. The idea here is that we want to make sure that traffic stops correctly when vehicles are leaving the apparatus bay. So what we're showing is one apparatus arm on the east side of where the apparatus comes out that will basically function for both the east and west directions coming for traffic coming from Rockingham Road. We do have two pedestals on the opposite side of the road facing the apparatus bay, since the apparatus will need to see that the lights are green for them, and that's basically mandatory. We came up with about 3 or 4 different options here, and this turned out to really be the most affordable as well and the least impact on the neighbors across the street. And I think with that, I don't know if there's that. Basically, that was it. If you want to go back to the site plan, if you have any other questions in terms of just, again, I'm willing to discuss anything you would like.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Greenie, seconded by Myers to open the public hearing. So any member of the public in person or online who has questions or comments may come forward and give them now. Just keep in mind that the subject matter is the site plan aspect of this construction as opposed to any of the things that the town council has previously decided. So please just give your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Sultan Chowdhury.
Did we do, one second, we didn't do a roll call vote, open the public hearing.
Could I have that name again, please?
It's procedural.
Could you say your name again, please, sir?
Yeah, this is my first time, so I'm a little nervous, so please excuse me for that. My name is Sultan Chowdhury. I own a property on the corner right across the pharmacy. You know, with all the road junction, Wyndham Road, and come there, right? So I'm just trying to figure out where exactly my location versus this, you know, to make sure, you know, just to understand if there's any effect on me for any way. So can you show something?
So what we typically do during these public sections is get everyone's questions. We ask that the engineers or presenters note them down, and then once we close the public hearing, we'll get you answers for everything that you've asked.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's all, thank you.
Anyone else in person or online?
Seeing them rise online, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have one more in person.
Good evening. I'm one of the abutting properties on Sunnyside Lane. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and my husband. We've lived there for 15 years, and we have a few questions regarding
Could you
this.
just, I'm sorry, could you just give your name and address for the record, please?
Of
Okay.
course. Bernadette Martel Gord at 16 Sunnyside Lane.
Thank you.
One of our concerns is, of course, we're worried about the noise. It's a quiet family street. I know earlier in the presentation you had mentioned some attempts to mitigate that. I was kind of hoping for a full list of what the impacts would be, especially with lights and sirens over at night, perhaps that would interrupt the road itself. Aside from what you had mentioned about putting the apparatus entrance further away from Sunnyside Lane, what other mitigating factors have been taken on this is one of the questions. Forgive me as I reference my list. So,
Okay.
as I understand, you will not be providing answers, just to list off my questions, correct?
So, yeah, we usually list all the questions, and then we ask the presenter to come back and go down them and provide all the answers. And if there's confusion, we can open it up again and get more clarification.
Okay.
But it's more efficient if we just get all the questions and then get all the answers.
Okay, thank you. I was also curious about if other locations had been or are being considered for this, or is this the only location possible for the new fire headquarters?
Yeah, that's probably outside the scope of this hearing. This hearing is to review this site plan for this location.
Okay.
The previous decisions were made by the town council, so I don't know if Mr. McGreenies wants to address that.
I think the chief could probably address that. I believe the site is because of the location and the timing, but the chief can probably touch base on that, correct? Yeah, yeah.
As property owners, of course, we're curious about the impact on the property values, having the fire station so close and being so much more out in the open versus having all that tree cover that we had currently. I don't know if there's been any analysis done on the impact of the residents surrounding this area.
Okay.
And I was also curious about if this does get approved and goes forward, what is the proposed timeframe for this? Is this 2024, 25, 26? Just as a general idea of how fast does this project like this move?
Okay. We can get answers for that as well.
And that concludes the questions I had come prepared with.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment?
Seeing none rise online.
We have a second person. Person wants to come up for a second time?
I think I kind of rushed out my question. This question this lady raised, they are valid to me too. It's very, so I would also like to have answer of those questions.
Okay.
So,
Good evening.
Hello.
Leah Eastman, 12 Sunnyside Lane. By looking at the prints here, it looks like that this is going to abut up against 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 as the address on Sunnyside Lane, and it's not going to go any further past 10? That's my question. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the public?
Mr. Chairman, seeing no one coming up, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved by Greenie, seconded by Myers to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So at this point, we'd like to ask the presenters and other staff who are present to run down and answer the public's questions for us.
I can start that. The chief can probably answer a lot of the questions. Chief, you want to take it over first, and then I can answer whatever you don't want to?
Well, I think if we go down the list, the first was what mitigating factors were taken. Well, actually, the first one was to proximity, where this gentleman's house is to the site. Can we bring up GIS? Yeah, so, if you pan, there you go. So you just kind of want to point out where the lot is that we're speaking about right there. Do you see that, sir? Where his cursor is, that's the land that the fire station will be going. And the intersection will be, go down to the intersection. So that's approximately where you're,
so it's going towards the parking hospital?
you're closer to the, I guess,
Mine is 77 Rockingham Road, which is right across the
Right
fire
ac-
station.
yeah.
yes, okay, right there.
Okay, so going towards the Glen Haven?
Yes, on the left.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
yeah.
Okay. So I guess the second question was mitigating factors for noise and light pollution. And I think you probably have a little more of a grasp on the specifics, if you want to talk about that.
Sure. One of the things, of course, we have to light up the site a little bit for the parking as well as, since it's a 24-hour operation. There can be dimmers that'll be set out there on the visitor parking. They will not be shut off completely, but it will also have complete cutoffs, so no light pollution will spill over into your property. There is a 20-foot buffer along the edge. When we're staying even farther away from the 20-foot, it's more like 25, 30 foot to the parking. The back edge, the north end of the parking for the two houses that are abutting the property farther north, they will basically you won't see much of the site because the way the retaining wall operates is going to block off quite a bit of the parking. We are putting a lot of planting along the east edge. we can't put much planting on the west edge because of the closeness of the getting around the building, but it's Rite Aid, and we didn't think that the rear side of Rite Aid would have as much, since it's a commercial use, it wouldn't have as much impact. In terms of noise, that's a question, the chief could probably answer that best, but I believe the plan is to, if they can, not to put their sirens on until they absolutely have to, and they get to an intersection, or there's major issues, but generally they try to leave the site without sirens.
And that was one of the reasons that the control light out front will allow us to do that. So once we get our green light and there's reds on both sides, that means our apparatus can pull out safely. So they're not going to have to be blowing their sirens and glaring their lights. And then once they move past that, then they can engage those emergency the lights and sirens when they need them. So these vehicles aren't going to be coming out of the building with lights and blaring their sirens, so it's going to negatively affect the neighbors across the street or to the side of us.
So just a note for the record, the photometric plan is in the plan set, and it is sheet number E801.
And we purposely put the training aspect of the building farthest away from Sunnyside, because that's, we're definitely taking in consideration our new neighbors. There's a hydrant over there, and there's some space over there where we can do most of our training, so we far enough away that we shouldn't be bothering the neighbors too much there. And I know that, I think you mentioned the lighting. There's going to be zero bleed over of the lighting to the abutters?
Yeah, they'll have cutoffs in the back of all the lights, so
That's it, yeah.
the light will shine straight down or out toward the parking. And in many cases, you can control the intensity of the light as well. So at a certain time, you can just dim down, and then if you absolutely need it through motion sensors or whatnot, it'll can come back up for a certain amount of time and then sit that back down. That's all. You can control most of that. So.
So did that answer your question on the mitigation of the light and the sound? Okay, great.
Chief, could you just, I believe they asked a question about the location too?
Yep, definitely.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So this has been in the works since I believe it was 2004. The original plan, when they closed, we used to have a fire station downtown. I think it was 32 West Broadway, turned into a restaurant. And the plan was to, move the fire station down into that area. We actually hired a consultant. It was MMA Consultants who did a study for the town and determined that that Chutes Corner area was the best place to put the fire station. Response times, coverage for the more densely populated part of town, and to cover the southwestern side of Derry. And so there had been a few plans and looking at a couple different lots in that area, and this one really is the only one that was feasible. So, but we did look at multiple lots in that area, even down on Windham Road and further up on Rockingham Road. This one just ended up being the perfect parcel, perfect spot, but we definitely did. We did due diligence looking for the perfect spot for the fire station. And,
The last question was about work starting. Do you want to talk about that, Chief, as well?
well, so we, you might know a little more about where we stand right now is we sent out some early bid packages for the groundwork. I believe those closed on Tuesday of this week. So I have not heard anything about those yet, but if those went in favor, if those are favorable, we're talking about possibly clearing the lot mid-October, and possibly even having a foundation in before snow flies. And then the plan would be, I'm thinking it's going to be the end of '24, beginning of '25, possibly for move-in. So, but anything can happen between now and then, so. it's just a preliminary schedule.
Right, so before we turn it over to the staff and the board, is there anyone in the audience who did not get one of their questions answered?
Yeah, that's the one I want to bring up, David.
So one of them, I think, was which parcels on Sunnyside are direct abutters? Can we determine that?
There are 4 parcels that are directed butters. The 4 to the farther, on the west side of Sunnyside. It's really only the first 3 that are impacted. The 4th one abuts mostly trees, and we're trying to keep the forested area. So it's really only 3, the first 3.
So
I don't
would that
know
be
their numbers.
2, 4, and 6?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, if that's, all I have is their lot and map numbers.
Yeah, that's right. 2, 4, and 6 are the first 3.
Okay. Ma'am, did you have a question that didn't get answered?
Yeah, I had asked about if an analysis had been done on the impacts of the values of the
Ah, we're talking about property value analysis.
I'm not aware of anything that was done.
I'm not either. Do you know?
No, sorry, I'm not aware of that it was ever done.
Is there a plan to do that?
I think that would be up to the, I don't want to speak for anybody, but
I don't either. I believe there isn't. This was already, like the chairman said, we are not voting on this. This is, it's going to be built there. It was already decided by the previous council where it was going to go. And I know, like, from in the past, I know that there was a couple of houses on East Derry Road next to that firehouse that was selling. And the people who, I knew one of them who was selling it, and they thought they were going to have an issue because of the firehouse. People wanted to be near a firehouse. So I'm just, making that general statement.
You don't predict that the land value plummets?
I can't really say either way. I don't know. I would probably suggest maybe coming to the next council meeting during the public forum. The chairman, Mr. Foote, was on the council. He would probably have more information than I would. I just got elected in March, so I've done a little history on this, but I'm not sure what was actually done in the past to say, hey, if we put the firehouse here, what would this impact in the neighborhood?
and it's not to say there wasn't one. This started back in '21. We started this process, and we've had multiple town meetings and public meetings so that may have been discussed. I just don't remember, and I'm not sure, so I can't answer that.
All right. Seeing no more questions from the, one more, okay, one more. But if it's a new question, you need to come up to the mic.
So this is a visitor parking, I see, right? Where is, how the trucks going to come in and out? Is that on the side? Where is that entrance or exit?
Right there.
Right there where the cursor
Oh,
is.
so they will all going on Rockingham Road, not on the side road, right? All the
Correct. Yeah,
Traffic
it
from
would be
there,
on Rockingham Road.
right? So when you start, when you get in a, call, so the siren will be, blaring distraction and the lights will be also on that.
The chief was saying there's gonna be, so when the engine comes down, there'll probably be a trip or something. And they have the Opticom lights, which turn the lights red, and then they'll get a green light so they know they can enter Rockingham Road safely.
Right.
And they'll probably, like the chief said, like I've seen them do like downtown, coming out of like the Central now, they usually get into traffic, then turn the lights and sirens on, so not to disrupt the neighborhood. And I'm sure once they get down to the intersection of what's that, South Main in Rockingham? South Main, right? 28, yeah. I'm sure there's an Opticom thing there, so they'll get a green light too. So probably like once they pass that, they'll probably turn the lights and sirens on. I'm sure like Mr. Chase could answer that question too, or the chief, but I'm speaking for the fire department. But
So all the action will be facing my house, approximately, right across. The lights on 77 Rockingham Road.
Yeah, it looks as if the main apparatus entrance, which is the wide curb cut, is sort of diagonally across from your house, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys will be taking land from the houses to make the road wider? Because obviously the road maybe, I think, is not big enough for the big trucks, right?
So the actual land that the town owns,
Yeah.
that is the right-of-way for vehicles is usually much narrower than the actual pavement. And so the pavement could be extended without actually encroaching on any private land.
I don't,
The road isn't being widened.
Yeah.
It's adequate.
No plans to do that at this point, but yeah, it could be, and we haven't had any presentation that there is any acquisition of land required for this project.
So any impact on sewer lines that are running now?
Mr. LaRue?
Did you say, that are there any impacts?
Yeah.
There should be no impact. There's actually a sewer service that was left as part of the extension of sewer main when Rite Aid and the Speedway were constructed. So everything's all set for the sewer. The water's on the opposite side of the road. We're going to
I'm
tap
talking
the,
about the house sewer, you know, my house.
it
sewer.
won't affect your house sewer.
Okay. All right, good enough, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your questions. At this point, I would like to turn it over to the board to ask questions. So if no one, I have a question, Chief. Given the engineer has talked about, I guess I would say, extensive amount of blasting that maybe wasn't in the original plans. Obviously, whenever there's blasting, there are abutter concerns about the noise, the hours when it's conducted, and what do they do if they find, shock damage to their homes because the blast waves, go through the bedrock. Is the town going to reach out to all the abutters and explain all of that to them?
I'm best to answer that question, Chief. As part of the specification, the blaster has to do a pre-survey of all of the foundations and houses that would be affected in the area. Most of the blasting, of course, will take place within certain hours of the day. You won't find anything early in the morning or at night. And generally, they're pretty good about it. The rock situation there, that we know there's rock. There's a lot of weathered rock, which means it might be able to just be ripped out. So we're using the worst case scenario here in terms of what would have to happen. We might find out that all of the rock can actually be excavated with the backhoe. It's really even with the borings and with the test pits we did hit rocks, but we don't know until we get to strip it all to find out exactly what the situation is going to be. But we do have precautions in there to make sure that there will be, like I said, the blaster will be responsible for any kind of damage and things like that.
Excellent. And one last question, Chief. Can you explain to the board and to the public what is the department's current protocol on travel speed, use of lights and sirens, for example, before and after it's declared as a working fire?
So we have a tiered response for different types of calls. So we have Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. An Alpha call would be considered, an Omega would be considered just like a service call, where nobody goes lights and sirens, all with traffic. An Alpha call, same thing. If it's just a low-level medical response or something like that, or check an alarm or something like that, it'd be an Alpha level call. They don't go with light and sirens, we go with traffic. We start getting to the Bravo calls. It's typically one piece of apparatus will respond with lights and sirens, the other one will respond with traffic, with the capabilities of upgrading depending on the information that we get. Then we get into the Delta calls, and that's when reported structure fires, where you'd have all our apparatus coming with lights and sirens. So it's tiered. And we're very aware of our neighbors and the community, and we're not out there to just cause a bunch of noise and wake people at night. We're very aware of that, and our people are definitely sensitive to it. So if that's kind of what you were referring to, so. And like you said, you'll see more fire trucks now and ambulances going on calls with no license sirens. They've determined it's safer. Sometimes the license sirens doesn't get you there any faster. So,
All right, is there any other questions from members of the board? Any board members have comments or suggestions they would like to provide regarding this plan?
Mr. Chairman, I was gonna do my normal suggestion, but there's a beautiful engraved granite slab that they put in there, so I don't have to ask about granite being built there.
So, Chief, you sandbagged that just for Mr. Grenice, right?
you got it.
I always ask for granite. That goes back from years.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add one comment about the blasting survey. It would be, it would be helpful if residences, when they're approached for the survey, it's only for your benefit as far as making sure that we get good photography or notes about anything that's within your home, just to allow us to do the survey. Some people are very apprehensive about letting strangers into the home, but as part of this survey, this is a useful tool for you to get anything fixed or repaired if there is some damage that occurs during blasting and any sort of kind. So we have to have a background information to be able to prove that. So it would be in your best benefit to try to help with that process.
Thank you, Mr. LaRue. We have more questions. Okay, can we make them quick and non-repetitive? But if they're new questions, you got to come to the mic.
Repeat my name again.
Yes, please.
Leah Eastman, 12 Sunnyside. You were saying that you would like for us to open our homes up. What exactly are they coming in to do, and when are they going to come in and do this?
You would get a notification prior, and basically what they do is usually they look at walls, they look at foundation walls, they note any cracks, any irregularities that are there. They just want an as-is picture, if you will, of what's in your house structurally.
Okay.
And then if somebody claims that they have, a crack that was a hair crack and now it's 3 inches wide, obviously that's very easy to prove. But sometimes people are apprehensive about letting anybody in, and if you don't allow that, then we'd have nothing to measure against, and then it becomes a whose word against who. And we just try to tell people, we're trying to be, it's not meant to be an invasion of privacy, it's just to look at structure. We're not looking at anything else.
Can it be made by appointment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the blasting company usually takes care of that.
Okay.
They have agents, that's all they do. They have video cameras, they have they have cameras, and they're very professional about it.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Is this a new question?
Come on.
Okay. I'm gonna call it end of the questions after this gentleman.
I'm a slow thinker. Last time when they expanded the Rockingham Road, I have a bit of experience of the water. All the rainwater was going through my property, and it took me a while fighting with the town, and they did something. It's still not perfect, but it's still a lot better. So I'm just worried about this time around doing all this construction because I am almost in your line of action, So to me, the drainage is a serious issue for me. So any comment or anything that you keep in mind when you're doing this stuff?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Do you have? My neighbor already asked my question. All right, great. So at this point, I would like to entertain a motion to close the review of this site plan.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. Mallaby?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing to amend Article 3, Application and Approval Process, Section 170-17, Fees and Costs, and Article 9, Application and Approval Process, Section 170-56, Fees and Costs, to update the planning board application fees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, back in the spring during the budget process, the town administrator had asked all departments to look at their fees. Some had not been done in several years, as far back as 20 years ago. So we looked at the planning fees. We found that our fees are consistent and competitive with other communities that were similar to us and have the amount of development. So we looked at Merrimack, Londonderry, Rochester, and Salem, and our fees were competitive with them. Some of them had looked at our fees and borrowed them and took what we do. The town council back in July, I think, meeting approved all the budget increases across the board for all the town departments, and David can speak to that. So our fees, they've already been approved, but we need to put them in our book, literally, in the LDCR regulations. So you see the highlighted increases in blue. Again, they're not excessive, it's only by a few dollars, primarily for lots. You see the highlights in blue. So staff would recommend approval based on the town council action that approved these fees. Planning board does not approve the fees. That can only be done by the town council.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? There's no public here. Do we have any public online, Mr. Preventer?
Seeing none, rise online.
Mr. Chairman, seeing no one coming to the forefront, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Greenie, seconded by Myers to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed.
You have a motion to attach to. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if any fellow members have any questions regarding the fees or anything.
I have a question. If this has already been approved by the town council, why do we vote?
Because you're amending, the fees are in your land development controller, so anytime you change anything in your subdivision site plan regs, you have to change the numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, got
the
it, but
town is requesting we be competitive on fees, and they have placed those in the budget, and they have given us permission to raise them, but statutorily, it's only the planning board that can actually revise our regulations, so we are doing our end of the bargain.
It's really a perfunctory vote. We don't have any substantive authority here.
Well, we actually do, but do you want to pick a fight with the town council?
No, I don't want to
Okay.
pick a fight with anyone. I'm just asking a question, and thank you for allowing me to ask a question. All
Yeah,
right?
technically, we could vote no, but I would not recommend it.
Are you done?
Good question.
It is a good question.
It is a good question. All right, so if there's no other further comment, I'd like to make a motion.
Ask a
Move to
question.
approve the
I'm gonna
proposed
ask a
change in the Land Development Control Regulations, Article 3, Application Approval Process, Section
Frequently when I speak in this
170-17,
board,
Fees
you
and
have
Costs, and
comments about it.
Article
I don't appreciate
9,
it.
Application Approval Process, Section 170-56, Fees and Costs.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Grenice, second by Malaby. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice,
Yes.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Reluctantly, yes.
John O'Connor,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Next.
So the next item is a public hearing to discuss proposed amendments to the appendix of the Land Development Control Regulations, specifically the Development Project Security Workbook to revise how construction escrow is calculated. Some of this is actually based on changes in state law.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. I'll defer to Mark real quickly, but just when the question came up, Mr. Chairman, you had asked that this workbook is part of our land development control reg. So again, as an appendix, you're making a change. That's why you have to vote on the public hearing. I'll defer to Mark if you have any questions on how they calculate the cost. You see highlighted in red in the escalation, if Mark wants to speak to that.
Yeah, basically, we have to allow for performance bonds, and we have actually for several years now, but this is just a formal update of the entire package relative to offering a cash or a letter of credit or performance bond for escrow on these projects. And as part of the state law, they don't like the word engineering contingencies, and they did strike it out. and just wanted an escalation factor to be imposed on the unit prices. I went through and actually we haven't really updated the prices on any of these units probably in 13 to 15 years. So I went through and did the whole, you can compare the numbers if you're interested. Today's pricing is obviously, especially in the last 5 years, is really ballooned. So really adding that, I subtracted the percent, but looking at the pricing that we have now, it's actually the same or more with the percentage we had before. So now it's actually easier for us, just doing the 15% when we're doing the spreadsheet. It's a simpler application, and the construction costs are basically up to date with what we're seeing for projects.
All right, so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
So it's been moved by Green, seconded by Meyer to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Do we have anyone online?
Checking now, Mr. Chair, seeing none, rise.
Mr. Chairman, seeing no one rising to the occasion in an empty audience, unless someone's watching on TV, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Green, seconded by Myers to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Public hearing is closed.
I have one comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
On the types of escrows that it shows here, page 4, where it says types of escrow. 5.
All right. Go.
We're all going to be a little challenged to find that section.
Bless you. Thank you. This one right here.
Page 5 of 18?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so where it says item, and then like on the first line, it says as-built drawings, and then it says performance bond underneath it. The performance bond should be over where it says type of security, so it makes it contiguous. It's kind of confusing the way it's written there. It needs to be changed before it's put in the book.
Oh, what you're saying, it's a MS Word
It should say cash,
formatting thing.
yes, letter of credit, or performance bond. It makes it look like it's separate the way it's written here. It should be over in the right-hand column so that it's all one statement.
Oh, that's a good catch. Thank you.
Makes sense.
I think it's the way it edits that it did that.
Yeah.
Once you actually do the correction, it should go where it belongs.
Okay,
Any other questions or discussion?
that's it.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no questions or comments from the fellow board members, I'd like to move to approve the proposed change to the Land Development Control Regulations Appendix Development Project Security Workbook to revise how construction escrow is calculated.
Second.
All right, so moved by Greenie, seconded by Myers to approve as presented. I will now poll the board. Mr. Chase. Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Greenies.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, so we have arrived at the end of our agenda, so do we have any alibis? If not, a motion to
Make a
adjourn
motion
would
to
be in order.
adjourn.
Second.
Okay, the non-debatable, all those in favor say goodbye.
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 Bye.
John, get well.
John.